there, and welcome to the Fearless Artist Podcast, where we empower classical musicians to build their own thriving careers. I'm your host, Michelle Lynne, and together with Deanna Petre, we teach artists to conquer the entrepreneurial side of their careers and create the futures they want. We are two freelance classical musicians who have lived and worked in Europe for a decade, and together we started the Fearless Artist Mastermind, a coaching company created to teach classical musicians how to overcome fear and take action on building their dream careers. In each episode, we will explore the intersection of artistry and entrepreneurship, teaching you the fearless mindset with practical steps and strategies to build a sustainable career. Get ready to build your own artistic brand, find a supportive community of musicians so that you don't have to figure out everything alone, and earn a living that you deserve. We believe that you can be a thriving artist and not a starving one, and we are redefining what it means to be a classical musician in the modern era. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Fearless Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Lynne, and today I'm very excited to have Nikki Naghavi on. Welcome, Nikki.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much. I'm super glad to be.
I'm excited to chat with you. I've been following you forever. I love your content, and I love what you've been building with your community. So I wanted to have you on so you could share about a number of projects that you're doing, and also what it's like building your own career, because I know you have an entrepreneurial spirit. And you've also got many different projects that you're doing. So maybe you can introduce yourself to our audience and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Nikki. I'm a violinist. I was born in Dallas, Texas, to a family of Iranian American immigrants. I'm an only child, and I started playing when I was 4. My parents originally did not expect me to become a professional musician. I come from a family of engineers and doctors and lawyers and everything basically not artistic. And I told them, I want to be a violinist. And they were all like, no, you don't. What are you talking about? But I stuck with it and came up for my undergrad to Boston. I went to the New England Conservatory, graduated in 2023, and I've just been doing a bunch of random things ever since then. But it's very fun, exciting life, and not every day is the same. So it's cool.
Yeah, tell me about that, because that's one of the first things we talk about with like building portfolio career is as artists, and all of our days look different. So what are some of the projects that you are working on currently? And after you did your master's, your undergrad at NEC?
Correct. I did my undergrad at NEC. I'm currently doing an MBA at the Global Leaders Institute. But yeah, my days are filled with, I guess, when I graduated college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of knew that I didn't want to do a master's in music, and it wasn't anything against music, but more that I was interested in a little bit more of being on the background side and communicating and connecting with others on a personal level outside of just music. So I was applying to jobs all throughout the summer, beginning of the fall in 2023. I was getting rejected from everywhere. I just moved into my own apartment in a studio in Boston, downtown. It's not cheap. So I was basically in a crunch to figure out how am I going to support myself in this situation. I eventually got a job where I went to school at the New England Conservatory, working in the prep school. I was doing that for about a year. I also, about a month before that, started this little business of mine called Glass Artists, which is essentially a contracting business for you musicians listening to this, but I like to call it a musician entertainment agency. We service mostly weddings and corporate events around the New England area. Our first year, we had around 45 events, which for me was a surprise because my day consisted of going to the gym before 9, going to work 9 to 5 to 7, usually doing some teaching, private lessons after that, and then being too exhausted to do anything for Glass Artists. So seeing that it still had a decent amount of reach, I decided to quit my full-time job in October of 2024 so that I could spend more time on the business. Started my MBA a couple months before that and continue to be teaching. So and performing around the Boston area.
That's amazing. Well, congrats to you for starting something like this, because that's huge. To have 45 events in your first year, that sounds like you got flying from the beginning. That's a ton of work. That's also a very sudden, different amount of work to handle on top of your full-time job. How was it for you to balance all of those plates? I know a lot of musicians listening are like, how do I do all the things and be consistent? Sometimes we'll start something and we just don't have the energy, like you're saying, coming home being exhausted after going to the gym and working all day. Like, how did you figure that out?
Absolutely. 100%. It's a really big concern that a lot of people have just because we're human at the end of the day. We also don't want to be working in all of our waking hours. We want some time to socialize and, just downtime to relax. So I would say that I feel very blessed in that I do love working. It's become something that I'm passionate about spending my time on every day, not just feeling like I need to out of necessity. So I think that really, really helps with the whole process. Besides that, you know, time management, I'm one of those little bit of crazy people who put absolutely everything in my calendar, including the 15-minute coffee with a friend, in the middle of the day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I love scheduling.
Okay.
I love to-do lists. Anything that is actionable, which I know you talk about a lot as well, actionable, but you can also like feel a sense of accomplishment upon finishing it, I think is really important to kind of train your brain to continue doing those productive tasks in order to feel that rush of endorphins once it's done.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot actually this week about small wins because I was lacking some huge motivation and it was hard to get myself going. And I was like, okay, let's create some momentum, small wins, just 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It gets that feeling of accomplishment. And I think particularly from day to day, because if you had a bad practice day, then I noticed the next day it's way easier to wake up and you're like, okay, wait, it seems easier today. But I think ideally we want every day to be like, oh, I'll start and then it'll get easy. But some days it's just like still a slog the whole time. I don't know if that is for you.
Absolutely. And to your point of practicing too, musicians and artists are in a special circumstance as well, because it's like you go into the practice room, you never walk out finished, it's that stuff never ends. And so feeling this constant sense of like needing to improve yourself, but never quite reaching that line of improvement, I think it's a very useful skill to have. Music, gives you that skill of perseverance and discipline and consistency at the same time, like you're saying, putting those small wins and metrics throughout the day to actually give yourself a sense of accomplishment for the hard work that you are doing.
I love how you're describing Glass Artists as an agency. Can you talk a little bit about stepping into this role? Because is it currently running as you had imagined it, or has it evolved into how it is currently?
It's actually, I didn't really know what I had imagined it to be. I mean, it's just me. So I have full control over how I present everything, the branding, what I say yes to, what I say no to.
Okay.
My original intention behind this was I found myself spending not 6 hours a day in the practice room, but rather 3 hours a day in the practice room and 3 hours behind the computer. This was during school. I realized, okay, I really like the organization part, putting things together, connecting people. And I think I'm good at it as well. So stepped into that role and thought, why don't I combine that with a passion to actually provide work to really hardworking musicians who are current students, recent graduates. So I try to hire a lot of younger and especially like people around still in the school world so that they can break into the freelance bubble a little bit easier as well, especially in Boston. And I thought as well for the brand of the Glass Artist, how do I set this apart from any other contractor, does a fair share of weddings throughout the summer as well. Because a lot of people do. And I thought, I'm going to take this from a luxury point of view, a kind of 24/7 concierge, like the way you step into the Mandarin Oriental Hotel and you feel like, you walk in, you want a warm towel, they give you a warm towel. You want slippers in your room, they give you slippers in your that totally customizable, feeling important kind of thing. Because I think it's important for the sake of music to make our audience, our customers essentially have a good experience with the whole process.
Yes. Thank you for talking about this. I think that's huge. We can unpack that. But first, I want to say, like, on your website, this absolutely is the feeling that you have. Everything is so beautiful. It's like this luxurious experience on the website. You've got all of your videos right there you can listen to. Everything's very clearly outlined what to expect. testimonials. It's a beautiful site. Everything functions beautifully. Did you build this yourself?
Yes,
Or
I
you
did.
had people?
Built it myself.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's amazing. Yeah. And to have all of the recordings, all of the set lists, and like these are the hour packages, everything is so clearly laid out. It just gives this feeling of like very highly professional. And I think if you're going to reach the luxury market, that's exactly what you need to come across in your branding. How did you learn about how to pick your angle in the market? Like, where were you getting these ideas from 3 hours behind your computer? Was that also a lot of self-led research?
Yeah. Well, I guess talking from when I was in high school, I started posting on Instagram. I'd say that's kind of where everything started, in that I was really, really interested in music and, doing my best artistically. But the more I had a presence online, the more I would see and notice how brands were leveraging their advertisements and how they wanted to hire, quote unquote influencers to do work for them. And I really, really like to observe a lot of people. So kind of flash forward, I got a little bit of marketing real world experience from that. Started doing my own branding online and my own website. And I remember staying up during COVID one night for 7 hours. I think I actually went downstairs at 8 in the morning and talked to my parents, and they were like, "Why do you look so tired?" And I was like, "Oh, I just built this website." And they were like, "You're a little crazy right now." But so I really, I don't know. I guess I get a little fixated on that stuff. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but for my productivity, it seems to be a good thing so far. But to flash forward, when I'm building like the Glass Artist website, I actually went to like Chanel and Cartier, and I thought, okay, what are these people, what are these brands doing that makes them so iconic and so luxurious? Not to compare Glass Artists to a brand of that prestige, but I think it's really, really valuable to be able to observe others around you who are in the same target, have the same target audience, and are successful and do what they're doing. And they're absolutely not music related at all. Obviously, jewelry brands, fashion brands, but I want to kind of attach myself to them in a sense, similar kind of website structure, landing pages, transparency that a lot of these places have as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. This is such an elevated mindset that you have to say, I'm going to align with this luxury market, how they're coming across to their audiences. Like, in terms of being a musician, how have you learned to start thinking from this approach of going for the max? Like, let's go 100% from the beginning and not kind of work your way up into it.
Yeah. It's a great question. We as musicians, especially as artists, tend to say yes to a lot of things. That's kind of what we're told to do. Yes,
Yeah.
go meet this person, go take this, play this. Don't get paid for that, but it's okay. It's good for your connections. And to a certain point, yes, absolutely. And, there's also nothing ever wrong with giving back to your community too, if it's like for a good cause. However, we, again, like I mentioned, are human beings. We only have so much energy throughout the day. So how we divide that and where we place our energy is really important to what kind of person we are and what kind of other opportunities we attract. Not to get too spiritual here, but the more you say no to things that are not quite what you think that you have the potential to surround yourself with, the more the events that or opportunities, people, monetary opportunities, bluntly come into your space.
Yeah, I fully agree with you and I hear you. However, speaking to the musicians who are afraid to make that jump of, okay, fine, I'll raise my prices, but what if no one comes? Or maybe there is no one that comes after for the first 3-6 months. I mean, how can you, is there a way that you had to teach yourself this mindset, or for you it was natural? Because it sounds like you very organically and quickly picked up all of these things. I mean, being observant as you're posting, a lot of people are just posting, not paying attention. So you're watching the ads, you're watching how they engage, you're watching that they're even transparent with their customers. I mean, these are like things you learn in marketing school. So like, it sounds like you just have this instinct around how these things work. Also, you mentioned you're good with connecting people. That's coming into your work now. You've managed to harness a lot of your strengths and bring them into building this business. So for someone who maybe is not able to kind of grasp that concept, like aligning yourself with higher opportunities, and they'll come.
Well, and now that you're saying that, Michelle, I think you bring up a really good point in that. How can you take that leap when you have like hundreds of thousands of dollars of students' loans to pay back as well, right? This kind of like it's definitely taking a chance. It's not the most secure or the safest way to go as well. And frankly, I think it's important if you want to be able to take that kind of chance, you have to also have a security blanket to fall back on, right? That's why I was working the full time. That's why I'd been teaching for 5 years and I continued having a full studio. I mean, I was really tired. I would come home and I was exhausted. And I'm 23. I want to have a social life too, but certain sacrifices need to be made. Once you're at a place where you can start saying you kind of are on this path of saying no to things and higher opportunities coming into your life, then it becomes a little bit easier. But I absolutely want to say that it's not like an easy thing to just start doing and then feel comfortable with, because who's going to pay your rent next month? You know what I mean? But in terms of, observing, I think I feel very lucky in my ability to like have the time to really take a look at what's going on around me. I think what I've learned a lot, especially after graduating school, is I've met a lot of non-musician friends who work in health sciences, who work in marketing, who work in finance. Boston is a great place for all of that. And I really ask them a lot of questions because a lot of times these groups don't mix. And so much of those practices are transferable in either direction. So that's also been really interesting. The people you surround yourself with.
I love that answer. That's very helpful. And I think making friends outside of music is one of the most helpful and maybe strategic things that we can do too, because we learn what they learn in their undergrads or how they prepare for their futures or life after school. And that's the reason we started the Fearless Artist, because Deanna and I felt completely unprepared for what was waiting for us. When you started Glass Artist, was there anything unexpected, or was it kind of just a slow progression and you could see what was needed in the market and you started building from there?
When I started Glass Artists, I would spend hours and hours every single day cold emailing people, cold calling people. Actually, things didn't just come to me. I went out and one day, there's this street here called Newberry Street, which is kind of like our Boston's Rodeo Drive. It's like the big shopping street with a little bit more of the like luxury brands and everything. And I literally took all my business cards and I went door to door for like 4 hours. My feet were killing me, but I was just trying to talk to everyone who would talk to me, just tell them about Glass Artists. Nothing, like no actual opportunities came from that one experience, but I did just get to see what people were responding to positively and what they weren't responding to, so that when the time comes that I'm conversing with a client, I can speak to the things that people were a little bit more receptive to, right? So there's been a lot of like kind of grassroots. I'm by myself. I've put in probably over the entire time of having, our Instagram and our social media and everything, $90 in ads. So it's really been organic for the most part. It's definitely not something I can fully support myself with, but I'm hoping to get to that goal. And reading books on, grit, perseverance, and I listen to a lot of like, I don't know if you've ever heard of like Alex Hormozy or Layla Hormozy and Shelby Saps, like
follow the
sales people, like I love that stuff.
Yes.
A lot of people think it's really like, oh, you're selling yourself to capitalism if that's how you think about life. But I think everything in life is a little bit of a transaction in terms of, if you have a friend, and I feel like I'm going on a tangent here, but I promise I'll bring it back. If you have a friend, and you do something for your friend out of love, absolutely, that's beautiful. But it wouldn't make sense if you did this nice gesture for your friend and they didn't appreciate you, even if it's just you doing something nice for them to appreciate you and then for your connection to grow stronger. That in and of itself is a transaction. It's not so that they do something nice for you the next time as well. So I kind of tie this back to building an audience as a business, as a musician, and no one's going to choose you or want to follow you or become your audience member if you're not giving them something of value in return, right? So if it's making someone laugh online, posting a comedy video, or making them feel seen by posting something that is relatable to them, or having fantastic art and an interpretation of a piece that they just absolutely love. But what's difficult is that musicians spend so much time perfecting this craft, but there are so many people who are so close to perfect that how is anyone going to differentiate who they should pay the most attention to? And by anyone, I mean the general public who we hope to have as our audiences.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Can you just unpack a little bit more with the self-promotion? Because I get a lot of pushback from musicians who say, I don't want to post about my projects myself because it's so me focused. What's a way that you've overcome that where maybe that doesn't affect you at all now because you have 100K? And I would love for you also to share how you built your audience there too.
Oh no, absolutely. Well, it definitely still affects me. I oftentimes before I hit a share button, I double think. I'm like, do I really want to post this? Is it worth it? I don't want my friends to, think, because I wouldn't say that in person I'm a big me person. I also think that I have a certain personality online, but I wouldn't say that I have that personality in one-on-one situations with my friends. And I'm going to speak to Instagram because that's just the platform that I am on the most. But if Instagram wasn't a thing, if it didn't exist, or if it wasn't helping me and professionally, I would not have a presence at all. I would much rather never share anything, be completely private. I think that's like a beautiful way of being. But given that it has given me so many opportunities, just in connections as well, that have led to chance and getting to know people around the city, for example, I continue to post. I guess, Michelle, you're putting me in a tough spot here. I'm also going to be honest with you. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the call, I'm an only child. I was raised in a very, very loving family. I'm so incredibly thankful for that. I wouldn't at all be here doing anything I'm doing now if it wasn't for their support at all times. But I had a lot of attention put on me at a young age. And while still learning humility, but I think that attention, also not having any siblings or any like really cousins near my age either, made me always talk to adults, and the adults that kind of I think made my maturity grow a little bit faster than the average kid. Just maturity in terms of what adults deem as mature, not necessarily. But I guess what I learned essentially is that what I have to share can be valuable to some. And I started doing it and I was getting a positive response. So I kept doing the things that were giving me a positive response. And then here we are.
Yeah, thank you so much because I really appreciate having leaders like you who do share. One thing I love about your content is you're very raw. You don't do the edits and the filters, and you'll just share an idea. And sometimes I'll just like let it play, and I'm like, this girl is so fire. Like she knows what she's talking about, and it's just you speaking and sharing your ideas. And I think that is so important to have leaders who are willing to share what's going on and not hold back and not worry about what people might think because you have a perspective, and that perspective it's shaping so many people. I mean, the majority of people will not write you and say, hey, your post really helped me today, right? So we actually never know how much impact we're making. I get this too. I know the podcast has been going for over a year now, and I'll get 2 or 3 messages per episode. But for every message that I get, there's probably 5 people who loved it and just don't take the time to write, and that's fine. But it helps me to remember what we're doing is very important, that we're being visible and that we're showing up and that we're giving what we have and that we have a message and it's important to us. And especially for someone like you, you're really crafting and carving your own career. You're creating your own success. And that's why I think it's so important that you have this visibility. I'd love for you to share a little bit more if you'd like to about the opportunities you've had from being visible online. I know many musicians dream of having 100K, That's my personal goal because I've been working on a couple projects and they're like, you got to get your visibility up. So I'm like, okay, how do I get there? So yeah, I'd love to hear about your process.
Well, I appreciate it. I really, really thank you so much for all the kind words. I also want to acknowledge you bringing in so many different thought leaders. I'm not going to consider myself a thought leader. I feel very much a student still, but getting to hear all of the amazing minds that you bring onto this podcast and share, have a centralized place where people and audiences can find that information is really, really equally as important and helpful. I think that's kind of like you're building like a really important place for the general public to convene. When I started my Instagram, I only let around 5 or 6 of my very closest friends follow it, and they were all non-musicians, and it was private, and I would post myself playing online. This is 2017 or 2018. So I was posting these videos pretty consistently. Then one day I made the whole like edited video and tutorial on up bow staccato. My friends to that commented, Nikki, no offense, but we don't care about this at all. Why don't you at least share this with someone who can use it? I'm like,
Oh man.
what a concept. So I was like, I was
Those
really
are the best kinds of friends who just
Right.
tell you.
right.
Just
They're
tell
like,
you.
so that's
Yeah.
what I did. I just opened my account. I went public. I didn't even know really how to use a hashtag or something. I didn't really know what anything was going on, but I was just kind of posting my own stuff. I think I also came in at a very, very strategic time of no one had practice accounts on social media at that time. I would 100% argue if I had started it now or like in 2020 when there were so many, I would not be in the same place I am and I wouldn't have built that audience at all. I think it's just very saturated at this point and it's difficult to stand out. There are those people who really, really do and they create amazing stuff and, power to them. I didn't have to try that hard back in 2017, 2018 just because no one else was doing it. And then, after
Right.
maybe like 1,000 or so followers, who were a lot of random people as well, I got my first brand offer and it was one of these little like foldable mirrors with the lights. Like you can get it on, TJ Maxx for like $5, but I was like, what's this? They sent it to me and I was like, oh, well, I have to like act like I know how to do makeup now because I got this mirror and I was like, I don't actually know what to do. Like, what do I do? So, I was kind of put in this position. I had to take a picture and I had already committed to them. So I did that. Time went on and, Instagram started monetizing some things. They're not doing it as much anymore, at least not for me as much anymore. I would say one of the biggest connections I made early on was a violinist in Chicago, Rachel Miller. She's one of my great friends now. She was working for an app called Trala at the time, which is like a violin learning platform. And so I started teaching on the app through there as well. Lasted about 5 years and I created so many connections there. I also teaching people from age 5 to 85 and from all over the world on Zoom and going back to back to back, especially during COVID, made me so comfortable with being flexible to how, like, what people need and how to respond to people, how to read them, how to read their reactions and make things engaging still. Because as we all know, private lesson online isn't the most ideal way to take a lesson. So it's important to make that engaging as well. I started being on podcasts and talking and about this stuff as well. Sharing my story made me better at storytelling overall. I think, which is as we all know, a really, really powerful skill, whether it's in concert or just sharing something casually. I'll tell you a funny story. Probably 2022. There's a lot of these like influencer platforms where you can sign up, make an account, and then basically brands who want to hire people but don't know personally who to reach out to can go find your name or your profile in this catalog of creators online. This one brand found me. They were paying really well. And it was like a a book reading app. I thought, oh, this is kind of nice. Like, yeah, I'll sign my name and we'll do this partnership. They email me about a week later. They start like telling me more about the app. I realize it's not just a normal book reading app. It's an erotic book reading app. So I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I just signed my name legally, binding myself to creating content for them. I have 13-year-olds following me. I have my violin professor following me. What am I going to do? It was so awkward. I had to make these books. It was some of the most awkward, but like I just had to press post and that really taught me to read my contracts all the way through and through so that something like that wouldn't happen again. Do your research, before committing to things. But
oh my gosh, for you.
I think now if I can do that, I can post anything else about myself. Anything's gonna be better than that. So yeah. So stuff like that has come up, but it's helps me learn like, oh, how does this person market this product, market it myself that way, and then how can I use that tactic in my own business?
What's something else you've learned as your visibility has grown on Instagram? Do you find yourself, you said double thinking when you would hit post, has that increased as you've grown with your following or lessened?
It's interesting. It's grown a lot more in the last year and a half, just because I find myself, I didn't mention, I'm definitely not practicing nearly as much as I used to as well, doing all the things I like when I started working full time. And so because I'm not practicing as much, I kind of feel like I don't have the right to share my music as much anymore. So if you scroll down a bunch, you're going to see lots of music videos. Now you see a little bit more of me talking, a little bit more lifestyle, just because I think that it's also more accurate to the person I am now and what I do and think about on a day to day. But I feel in this awkward space of like, okay, I used to feel awkward posting non-music stuff or non-classical music stuff. And now I feel awkward posting the classical music stuff, but I gravitate to the other stuff naturally. So that's interesting. I also have learned in this process, though, that everyone talks. Some people are going to like you. Some people are going to love you. Some people are going to dislike you, hate you, or just think you're annoying, or even talk about you, even if they don't really have any real emotions to you. And to be honest, we all talk, we all do it. So, that's going to exist, I think, especially as you grow up bigger and bigger circle of connections in the world. So I think that just comes with the territory. But
have you always had this ability to have this shield of like, yeah, people are going to talk and it's fine, just like letting it slide off of you? Or is that something that you had to develop? Because I'm asking because I hear so many musicians say, like, what do I do when my colleague judges me for posting this practicing video?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in the music world, it's just people talk a lot and there's a lot of judgment. Well, when I was in elementary school, I had braces, I had glasses, I had frizzy hair. English was not my first language. I was taking like Persian food to lunch every day instead of like grilled cheese. And then my orthodontist, told me that I should take my retainer to school everywhere I go and put it in after, I finish eating. So what I did was put my little retainer box on a string around my neck and wear it as a necklace. Like I have embarrassed myself so much in the past that I don't know that this stuff phases me as much anymore, basically.
Oh, you're a gem. That is so sweet. I was about to say, I also had glasses and I would wear like the sports bands so they wouldn't get knocked off with like basketball. So I had like the band going through my head. I mean, it's so bad. But I think you used it for your strength. You're like, you know what? I've been there. I can handle this. And for me, I think I went more internal. I'm like, I've been so like crushed with embarrassment. Like I can't like putting myself online has always been like a little bit of a, okay, here we go. And now I've gotten to a point where it's easier because I found my audience of people who appreciate it. So maybe that's similar with what I mean, as your content is changing, I think because you've built such a strong personal brand, people are loyal to you, whether you're showing us your practicing or about glass artists or about your MBA, which I'd also love to ask you about. Like, I mean, we just want to hear from Nikki. I just want to hear what Nikki thinks.
Oh, I appreciate that. I wouldn't say that I quite feel that way, or, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't ever want to get too big in my head, but I really do appreciate you saying that.
I'd love to hear about your MBA and the reason behind it and also what you're learning, because that's totally speaking to my heart.
Absolutely. So I've always, like I said, I decided not to do a master's in music when I was finishing my undergrad, but I definitely was interested in having another degree. So an MBA was always something that was pretty big on my bucket list. I had found out about this program, which is actually an MBA in arts innovation from a school called the Global Leaders Institute. It's a fully online program. They're based in Washington, D.C. We have a couple of in-person summits throughout the year to actually get together as a cohort and, work on our assignments and projects and case studies together. But I initially applied without meaning to. I think it was like a free application or maybe like a very low cost application. So I applied. I did an interview completely for, excuse my language, for shits and giggles. And then I got in and I was really surprised. So I was not planning to be back in school this early, but I'm really glad that I am now and learning a lot from it and getting to meet a lot of, excellent people in the cohorts. So yeah, I'm glad, and it'll be nice to be able to, say I have a master's degree.
Yeah. So now you're studying the business side. What is something that the arts or musicians need to learn from the business side, and maybe vice versa?
It's a great question. I can speak to, well, in general, I think the perception of yourself being a business and running your life as a business has a bad reputation. And I can understand in some ways, we're artists and we're doing what we do for the love of the arts, but we also are humans and ourselves before we are artists. So if you're not able to sustain yourself, sustain your health and your happiness, the people you love around you, it's how great is the art that you're going to be able to produce in turn. So I think that it's important to run your life and your career in a sustainable fashion. And that means focusing on what's coming in, what's coming out, so that you can actually put your best foot forward artistically. Vice versa, I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot by working and seeing this in real life settings. So many people get caught up in the official systems and processes and the steps that it takes to make something happen, or like roles that people play in one functioning, thriving business. So that's not what I do. So, someone else should take care of that. If you don't have the expertise to do it, that's fine. But if we're all working toward a common goal here, it's a little bit not encouraging when your colleagues are so focused on themselves and their job description, for example, or the officialness of something happening, that everyone loses sight of the goal at large, the teamwork, essentially the shared goal. So I think that there could be a lot more collaboration and community fostering within the business world, the corporate world, if you will, and then a lot more individualism in the artistic world.
That's so beautiful, because musicians, we learn to work together because it's just necessary for what we're producing. And so it becomes instinctive. And maybe that's why artists have poor boundaries sometimes with saying yes to everything and being willing to jump in and fix everything, because we're used to just doing it all. And we know that there's a job to do and we got to get it done. But I love what you're saying about the business world also having like a system and a process to get things done, because as you've learned with Glass Artists, if you want to pull off an event, you got to follow a system. I'm sure you have like to-dos and organization behind it that's very structured. Where do you want to see Glass Artists go? Like, what's a dream that you have for Glass Artists?
Well, metrically, I love to play in, everything that I book, but I'd love to get it to a place where I don't have to play everything. I'm able to support myself and my family, and then, create work for a lot of musicians in the United States. Work that's like people are excited to come to and put their best foot forward. I would say one other thing that sets glass artists apart, which not a lot of other contracting companies do, is actually pay their musicians well. I have a standard of an hourly rate that if it won't produce something less than that, even if it's for a big company I've always wanted to do, I'm willing to take the step in and, do things for free in order for the brand, but I'm not expecting anyone that I hire to lower their own standards and their own boundaries for me. So always treating my employees, I guess, my subcontractors, my musicians with the utmost respect, best situations, always making sure that they're protected in every situation, and then giving them a good return on their investment of time in my company. So, like I said, it's a give and a take.
It's so beautiful. I'm really encouraged to hear about what you've been building and also how you have set yourself up for success from the beginning, that you've picked the target market. You said, this is how we are, this is how we act, this is how we treat our clients. This is what I've learned from my years of being on social media and sharing and working with people. And again, like coming back to how you have so many different skill sets, you've put them all together to create this. And I think that's something a lot of musicians can learn from, that you are more than a violinist and you've put all that together in order to play more and give work to other musicians. So thank you for what you're contributing to the music industry, not just in Boston, but everywhere, because you inspire so many people online. And I think, your work is really beautiful.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate that.
If you had an action point for our listeners, we like to finish every episode with one thing that they can do because of what we've shared today. Is there anything that's highlighted to you from our chat?
Yeah. So, a lot of us have big goals out there. I have a big goal, and the way that I think you can start making it a little bit actionable for yourself is realizing that there are mid-level goals kind of that all lead to that one major big goal. And then beneath those mid-level goals, like daily steps that you must take in order to reach the mid-level, in order to reach the top goal. So I guess, if you have a goal, you can reach your goal, but to figure out what each step is in order to get there. And this always starts from the small steps. So never get discouraged that even if you're doing something small today, that it's not going to have an impact, because it really will.
Beautiful. I'm just thinking right now of my big goals, and I'm going to break it down at the mid-level. Thank you so much, Nikki. I'm so inspired listening to this. How can people find you, follow Glass Artists?
Thank you. Yeah. So we're active on Instagram. You can find me at Nikki Naghavi Violin, and Glass Artists at glass.artist. If you're a musician and you're interested in getting involved as well, I'd love to speak with you. You can feel free to send us a message on Instagram and see how we can get started in a mutually beneficial partnership.
Amazing. That's great. We're definitely going to put the word out to all of our musicians in that area. Thank you so much for your time today, and would love to stay in touch. For everybody listening, take a screenshot of this episode and share it to your stories, and make sure to tag Nikki and Glass Artists. And we'll say until next time, be fearless. Thanks so much, Nikki. Thank you for listening to the Fearless Artist Podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to share this podcast with a friend. To join our membership or one of our coaching programs, visit our website at thefearlessartistmastermind.com. This episode was produced by Pokey Huang at PH Media Studios in New York City. We're Deanna and Michelle, encouraging you to create your own opportunities and to go after what you want. You have what it takes to build the career of your dreams. Until next time, be fearless.